Brian,
Hello, Josh.
how you doing, man?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. Doing good. I was just get the meeting started recording. I'm going live to the Facebook. Give me just a second and we'll kick this thing off, man.
Do you
How are you?
do you have like a moderator that they're going to be doing like something like Taylor was doing? Or
Yeah, Eden will. I don't know if she'll be on all the calls like Taylor was on most of them. I don't know what Eden's like call schedule is going to be. But yeah,
Hmm.
she's kind of the we call it like the brains behind the operation, just tries to make
Yeah,
sure that we're all staying in line. And thank the Lord that my only responsibility is like being here and presenting, and then like they take care of it because man, it's a machine, that's for sure.
that's pretty risky of them to just let you try it all on your own.
No. I know, right? What are you thinking? Oh
I'm
man.
I'm doing well though. I'm excited to be here as always, and looking forward to all seven or more pictures that you have involved.
I may disappoint you today with the number of photos. We have photos.
But you got pictures in the background,
Yes.
so
Yeah. Kids drawing pictures. Everything has a Halloween theme that my daughter's been drawing lately. So that's always pretty cool. You know, like a wicked witch cat or a vampire dog or something like that. So
very cool.
we've got another person coming on right now, and while they're kind of getting set up, I'll just kind of say this just as housekeeping for everybody else that might be watching. If you are watching this on Facebook, we would love you to actually be on here with us live on Zoom. Even if you have to come on and mute yourself or turn off your video because you're eating and you don't want to see, you don't want us to see you with all the food in your teeth, that's okay. But it would still be just hugely beneficial to you and your gym if we can personalize it to exactly how this presentation can relate to you. So all you got to do is click on the link in the Facebook comments, and there's a password there. Make sure you type that in as well, and we will make sure that we get you let in. Let's see, the Your Life Gym.
Yes. Well, that's one of the gyms I'm with, but I am with CrossFit Be Someone.
Awesome. Is that Josh
Sorry,
Melendez's
I
gym?
forget to change the name on my
That's okay. Is that Josh's gym?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And what was your name?
Taylor.
Taylor. Okay, great. Taylor, it was nice to have you on today. Have you been on my office hours before?
I haven't yet, no.
Oh, you're in for a treat today, let me tell you. Isn't that right, Brian? Is that right? Is that what you would say to people?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment.
Okay. All right, cool. So we'll go ahead and get going. Let me share my screen with you guys. And then when I do, if you would just give me a thumbs up that you can see what I've got here. Okay, cool. Awesome. Let me move this photo of you guys around so I can see. And then Taylor, I don't know if you heard me saying this earlier, but if there's any questions that you have, any comments, don't feel like you need to like be formal and type it in the comment box, or that you need to raise your hand. If you want to just unmute yourself and then speak up, say, hey, wait a second. I got a question about this. That's how we're going to make sure that we maximize everything for you guys today.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so let's get started. Today, what we're going to talk about is routine. And in a nutshell, how you can use the natural rhythms of life to your advantage. So I realized when I was creating this presentation that a lot of the language that I use is in reference to how you can use this to coach your clients. But in actually going through the presentation, I realized that it could also be very beneficial just for you guys as coaches, as regular non-fitness enthusiast human beings. Maybe you're a mom or a dad, brother or sister, or significant other. You can really use this to your advantage as well to just kind of get the most out of your life. So whenever you hear me say your clients or your members, just think that it could also be something that is really impactful for you. So hopefully come away with something for you guys. So Why is this something that I picked to present on today? Number one, whether people realize it or not, we are all driven by routine far more than we might actually think. And funny story, when I was creating this presentation, we homeschool our kids. Brian, I know you know that. Taylor, this is actually the kids homeschool office that I'm in right now that I usually do these presentations from. And so I was busy kind of writing stuff out, and my daughter, who's 6, comes up to me and says, Daddy, what are you doing right now? I said, oh, I'm doing a presentation about routine. And she's like, oh, you mean kind of how I get up in the morning and I come downstairs and I have breakfast and watch TV, and like she is like timelining her day. So even a 6-year-old kind of understands the concept. But I think it kind of gets lost on adults a little bit. We think that we live this, life of maybe variety, or we want to live this life of variety. But when you actually get people to timeline their days and weeks and months, they will actually come to find that we are all far more routine driven than we realize. So that's number one reason why I think it's important. Number two, rhythm and routine are really, really effective in reducing stress, simply because of the comfort that it creates. I am so ingrained in my daily routine to the point where if I don't have, 45 minutes to get up, read my Bible, drink my coffee before the rest of my day starts, if something disrupts that, it does cause stress. So the inverse of that is when I can just live by my routine, it's very comforting. All right. This routine is what makes things easy for us. Less decisions that we have to actually actively make gives us that sense of comfort. Now, because of this, and this is something that we live day in and day out working with clients, especially in health and fitness, because routine just creates comfort in life, that is also what makes change incredibly hard. And not just change for 30 days, but change for a lifetime. So sustainable type change. So armed with this knowledge, I'm hoping that we can make more effective decisions in our coaching. So Taylor, I know it's your first time today, but the hallmark of all of my presentations is this slide right here. So if you get a few minutes in, you're like, I don't want to hear this guy talk anymore, at least you can walk away with the Cliff's Notes version of this. The downside being you just don't get the fun, the pictures, and the detail that I'm going to provide for the rest of the hour today. So note number one, piece number one is we're going to start by identifying seasonal rhythms. All right. And we'll dig into that and unpack it and talk about what that means. Cliff note number two is you want to meet them where they are, them being your clients. Or like I said at the beginning, it could also be you. And then Cliff's note number three is we want to provide education in order to empower our clients. Provide education to empower. All right. Now, before I get going, I am curious as to hear what sorts of routines you guys have. Now, you can pick a morning routine. You can pick a warm up for a workout routine. But I'm just curious, what is a routine that pops into your head that kind of keeps you focused, you don't have to think a lot about, and is just a part of your daily life? And because I'm from the South, I'm a big believer in ladies first. So Taylor, you are up first.
The first routine that comes to mind is just warming up my clients. So like, it's always going to be, not always, but most of the time, like biking for 2 minutes and then a Hinshaw warm up. And then we get into a more specific warm up, or running for 2 minutes, same thing, Hinshaw warm up, more specific warm up.
Awesome. Love it. That's perfect. And that's something that they can count on. And I'm sure what it does for you as a coach as well is because you're seeing them in these consistent patterns, you can see like, that's not how Jimmy usually moves. Like what's going on there? Perfect. Right. All right, Brian, what about you, man? Give me a routine.
So for me, since I either have clients or group classes at 6 a.m. Monday through Friday, I wake up at 4, grab my bag, go straight to the gym. I get training by like 4:30, and then if I have time beforehand, I'll do like the Wim Hof method, like breathing practice and a cold shower. If not, I wait till after class, but wake it up, grab my bag, get to the gym and train, puts me in a good mindset and like gives me that boost of energy to show up for my people.
That's awesome, man. And kudos to you for getting up and getting your training out of the way that early. That's a very efficient use of time.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. So let's start with piece number 1, which is identifying seasonal rhythms. So the easiest place that I find to start with this is figuring out where in the world are you located. So for me, I'm in Florida. Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, but you're up in the Pacific Northwest. Is that right?
Seattle.
Correct. Yes, that is right. And then Taylor, where is your gym? Where are you located?
Houston, Texas.
Okay, Texas. All right. So we've probably got a lot in common in terms of weather and things like that. It's perpetually hot. You got a rainy season, but like that's it. It's like hot and rainy. At least that's what it is in Florida. All right. Now, Brian, for you in Seattle, where, just in case you didn't know, everybody else in the world thinks that it is just rainy and dreary 365 days a year in Seattle, and you're all depressed because of it. Is that accurate?
It's not far off, but no, it's kind of like a common secret of, it rains here all the time, so just stay away from Seattle.
Yes, I've heard people do that about Montana too. They really build up the winter so like no one else will move there.
Yeah, I mean it stays fairly wet, but a lot of the times it's just quick showers here and there.
Yeah.
And we're actually getting to that turning point right now, but once it changes seasons from a very short fall into winter, it is pretty much gray until spring.
Gotcha.
And rainy, wet most days during the winter. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so I'm sure that you guys have heard of this before, but this is an image depicting what is known as seasonal affective disorder. And the closer that you are to the equator, the more impact that this has on you. But usually we have a handful of Canadian gyms, and those are the groups of people, at least in the gyms that we work with, that really feel a drastic impact by this. So this is just a quick little slide, to just talk briefly about seasonal affective disorder. I do find it funny that it is the same acronym as the standard American diet, which is SAD. So in both cases, these are sad things. But seasonal affective disorder can affect people of any age, but really it's people kind of in that 18 to 30 range. So I'm going to make a guesstimate and say that in our gyms, that is a decent portion of our clients. There are a lot of different reasons for it, but Brian, you actually hit on one of the big ones, is that when you go from having a really long day to a really short day, and then it's just dark for more of the 24-hour cycle than it is light, that biologically has a massive impact on people. And so circadian rhythm is, disrupted, and all these different changes happen biologically, but it is an actual thing. So depending upon where not only you are located, so if you train clients physically in person, or perhaps you have some sort of online coaching offering, this is something that you should be aware of. Okay. So seasonal affective disorder. We also talked about this a little bit. So if you have a perpetual rainy season, so I know in Florida, when it hits about March, April until basically late September, we need to know that it is going to rain at some point during the day, morning, afternoon, evening, we're going to get showers. And when it is not raining, the other things that we know is it's going to be very hot and very humid, right? So Brian, you already touched on yours. Taylor, any anomalies that we haven't covered just with regards to the weather there in Houston or anything like that?
Not really. It's really, I think like August is probably one of the hottest, most humid times here. to the point where some sports teams won't even train during that time. They'll take a month off just because it is like so unbearably hot and humid and hard to breathe. But other than that, we've touched on pretty much. I mean, it'll be rainy for a couple of weeks sometimes, but
Yeah.
on and off usually.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So this is really the, you know, the opening part of it where you guys can start is like just purely the seasons, you know, spring, summer, winter, fall, things like that, knowing how that is going to affect your calendar for the year. So kind of put that in the back of your head in terms of like annual calendar, because we are going to come back to that in a couple of slides. The next thing that you can do, because I'm going to make an assumption about your gym, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've probably got clients, a lot of them that have children. So we have 2 kids. Now, we don't do traditional public school anymore. We homeschool, so that provides a ton of freedom. But even still, being a gym owner, we need to, or I need to be aware of the school calendar, not simply because we run a kids program, but more importantly, because I know that that is going to be a big deciding factor for when people want to start something new, when they are going to have challenges getting started again, when they are potentially going to fall off. So knowing the start day of school, the end day of school, when they are on holiday, these are all really, really important things to know that help, again, kind of paint this picture of like the seasonal rhythms that your clients are dealing with. All right. Continuing on, and we're just trying to capture a couple of different avatars here. If you have a bunch of clients that are traveling business professionals, some great information that you can seek out from them is what's their busy season for traveling. Now, if your busy professionals are anything like the ones that I work with, they're going to say, I'm always busy. And while that may be true, again, what we can do is maybe get them to actually track their time on a weekly or a monthly basis to find out, okay, but I know every day is busy for you, but when are you going to be hit hardest? All right. When are you going to be getting on an airplane week after week after week? Those are the things that we are looking for. And then Taylor, I'm sure that you guys deal with this one here, but gearing up for something like the CrossFit Open, you know, that plays a seasonal role in the CrossFit space, right? So usually around early February through the end of March, you can kind of count on those are the quote unquote competitive weeks. Although nowadays, I think they're only going to 3 weeks, but still you do want to be aware of it. Not only that, but what does that do to the calendar planning for the weeks and months before that? Okay, because that is a seasonal rhythm for the people that actually care about the CrossFit Open within your gym. And really, what we're trying to do here is identify routine disruptors. So, and we can kind of reverse engineer this. If I know that the CrossFit Open is going to be in the month of February, and that's going to disrupt the routine that people have of their normal 4 or 5 days a week, and then they come on Saturday and they do a great partner workout, all of a sudden the CrossFit Open is here. How can we prepare them ahead of time for that? All right. If I know, if we go back to this previous slide, that school starts and ends on these specific days, what can I be thinking ahead for the following year to set my clients up for success when these routine disruptors do pop up? Okay. So that's really what identifying seasonal rhythms is all about, is figuring out what are the routine disruptors. Okay. So those kind of defined start and end points of busy travel season, CrossFit Open, school calendar, things like that. And then the last piece of this puzzle is figuring out how to preempt these issues from becoming issues. So for instance, if you're dealing with a client that suffers from seasonal affective disorder, they live up in the, northern Canadian provinces. And so sunlight is basically non-existent for a good portion of the day for them. Well, vitamin D is going to be a problem. They're not going to be getting outside as much as they can in Houston or in Florida. So, what are some ways that we can get ahead of, hey, vitamin D is a problem and we're like halfway into seasonal affective disorder right now? So, if I know when that switch kind of flips for people, I can start planning ahead, all right, a month or 2 or 3 months before that time period. Same thing for rainy season. So, Brian, I'm sure you guys, when you know it's really going to be heavy into the rain, you have already thought of alternatives to running outside ahead of time. Yes? So I'm curious, what are some of those alternatives? Because we've got ours, but I always like to hear what other people do.
Yeah, I would just turn that into a lot of biking, rowing, jump roping, or providing people the option to still run.
Yes. Do they ever choose that?
Not nearly as much as they do during spring and summer, but yeah, a little bit.
So I have a funny story about that. This when we first opened our gym years ago, we didn't have rowers. And in Florida, like I said, it rains all the time. And so like any good CrossFit coach at the time, it was, well, you could still run in the rain. We still gave them that option. As long as it's not lightning, I don't mind if the people want to choose to run in the rain, or you can do burpees. But we figured out that we had to know like the over under on the number of burpees that somebody would choose in place of running. It would be like a 50-50 shot. So like the lap around the building that we usually do like warm-ups and for workouts is 200 meters. And so what we found is that 13 is the magic number where it splits the gym in half. Half of the people will choose 13 burpees. Half of them would choose, I'm going to still run in the rain if I can. So food for thought. Taylor, anything for you guys, like when it gets brutally hot in Houston, you're talking about sports teams figuring that, you know, we're not even going to practice because of the risk of, you know, heat stroke or anything. What about you guys? Do you have some alternatives to being outside at that time?
Yeah, so same kind of thing. Like instead of running, just biking, rowing, jump rope. Something else we've done is like banded runs on the rig. So you put like the band around your hips and
Yes.
run in place. Or if it's like a farmer's carry or something, we'll do like in place marches instead, like inside.
That's awesome. Those are, man, I forgot about the banded run. That's such a good one. And it's so exciting the first time that somebody does it. And then they're like, I never want to do that again.
Yeah.
All right. So this was just like another graphic for the seasonal affective disorder. It talks about like, you know, risk factors for it. Living in an area really far from the equator. Seattle's on there. Florida's on there. Florida being, you know, they are not going to be affected quite as much as somebody in Brian's part of the country. Family history, pre-existing depression or bipolar disorder, and then the age component. Last slide on this first one with identifying is, this is something, if your owners, your gym owners have not talked to you about it quite yet, they will be very, very soon, I can promise you, or you'll start hearing about it, is basically having an annual plan, like an annual calendar of, these are the things that we are going to do during the year. So if you want to get some really sweet brownie points and show that you are thinking ahead, what you can do is identify some of these seasonal rhythms that we've been talking about, and then reverse engineer what kind of content that you can create or provide to the gym that will provide value to your clients. So to take it back to rainy season, if we know that it's going to be coming up, rainy season is going to be starting in April, maybe in February and March, we start talking about the different alternatives that you can, you know, put into place. You talk to the clients and, you know, to your social media, that if somebody is wanting to do something outside, but it's raining, hey, guess what? Here's some alternatives and here's some equivalents. If you were planning to run a mile, maybe you can do this. If you were planning to do a 5K, maybe you can do this instead. All right. But if you identify, and you don't have to go crazy, even just a couple of, you know, seasonal, you know, some of the seasonal pieces, and then reverse engineer a few pieces of content from there, that will go a long way to providing value to your clients. And then the other thing that I would work out is a couple of conversation prompts and frameworks for you guys when you are actually interacting with clients in person during class. So if I know that really hot time of the year is coming up and I'm in Houston, Texas, maybe I'm going to make sure that I put into the back of my mind that I want to talk to everybody about the amount of water that they're drinking throughout the day leading into these really hot months. Or if we're going to do a workout like Murph or something like that, it's not just, the day or 2 or 3 days beforehand. We're going to start talking about ways to set them up for success, not necessarily from a fitness perspective, but all the other lifestyle factors, weeks ahead of time. So if you can create just a couple of prompts and frameworks, that go back to the seasonal rhythm piece, that's going to be a big win for you guys and for your clients. Before we go to part 2, which is basically meeting them where they are, any questions about this stuff so far? Nothing? Let me double check the Facebook, see if there's anything there. Oh, yes. Snowbound for 6 months, starting October 31st is what Eden said. I can't relate to that down here in Florida. I don't know what that is. So like when I pulled up this picture here, like I apparently like this is like trees that grow somewhere where it's cold and this white stuff falling is snow. That's what they tell me, but we don't ever get that in Florida. So it's hard to relate to that.
I can confirm that is snow.
To be fair, I was actually born in Kansas City, so I, have seen snow and we have gone skiing. But from like a daily life stuff, nah, it's just rain. People freak out about hurricanes, and that's just normal here in Florida. Okay, so let's continue on. How do we actually meet them where they are, knowing what these seasonal rhythms, the challenges that they bring? So when we say meet them where they are, what we're talking about is providing your client the minimum effective dose. So think of it this way. You want it to be so easy that they can't say no to what you are suggesting to them from a coaching perspective, right? So there's this we talked about this book a few times last week, James Clear, his book, Atomic Habits. And so this is a graphic from the book, So Easy You Can't Say No. I can't remember who he attributed that quote to, but forgive me for that, for not honoring the source, but it is in his book. And so what this is basically a representation of, if you think about it, like we've been in the health and fitness industry for a while. What do we know is going to happen in another 6 weeks at like regular Globo gyms? Is they're going to have a humongous spike in people that are like, yes, I'm ready to join the gym and kick it off January 1st. They've got this huge buildup of motivation. And so they're able to do something, right, really intensely. So I'm going to go for 25 days. And then when motivation is gone, and that habit has actually been a big disruptor, it's a really difficult thing for them to get up and go to the gym every day. When they had years of not doing anything like that, guess what? They stopped doing it altogether. And then they've got to wait for another giant dose of motivation or inspiration. So that line A is representative of hard, inconsistent habits. What we want to do and encourage people to do is easy, consistent habits. So the way that I like to think of this is somebody comes in to your gym, you're doing a no sweat intro or consultation, whatever you call it, and they are like gung ho. I'm ready to start working out every day, change my nutrition, adjust my sleep. I'm going to do all these things. And you're thinking, yes, this is going to be amazing. Based upon what their history is, make sure that you check, your excitement at the door, because you want them to be successful long-term, not just for a couple of weeks. So someone that's never exercised, instead of you're going to prescribe and sell them 3 days a week of group training, nutrition, sleep, and whatever else you guys might package with it that they seem gung-ho to do. Well, maybe that person just needs to walk outside for 30 minutes a day and drink a glass of water, because they don't drink anything but soda right now. So rather than ripping the Band-Aid off and changing all these things, we want it to be so easy that they can't say no. Because for all of the excitement surrounding really, really intense workouts or changing your diet to have these quick, fast results, really what gets people results for sustainability long-term is consistency. So can you walk for 5 minutes today? Oh yeah, no problem. Great. Then start there. And then tomorrow you can do 6 minutes and then 7 minutes and so on and so forth. And I know that I'm using a very elementary example, but hopefully you guys kind of like catch my drift on where I'm going with that. Yes? Okay. So the next piece is when you're having conversations with people and you're thinking about, okay, I need to do what is best for them. I need to meet them where they are. This is where you use your insight and your experience and ask questions that get them to commit to something that they can succeed with. And so I don't know if you guys saw that movie with the only guy I can ever remember is Leonardo DiCaprio's in the movie, but Inception. I found this really cool screenshot from the movie, but that's kind of what we're talking about here is this idea of inception. So you're not telling them, hey, you need to come to the gym 3 days a week, change your nutrition, sleep 12 hours, yada, yada, yada. But you know that's the direction that they ultimately need to be walking. Great. So let's ask some guiding questions to get them to come to some sort of thing that they can commit to. It might not be all 10 things I just said. It might just be, again, I'm going to walk 30 minutes a day, 3 days a week, and that's okay. So that's number one, is using your insight and experience to ask questions. The other part of this is some of your questions should also identify potential obstacles. So like what we were talking about earlier, the routine disruptors. So Sally, you said that you're going to start coming to the gym 5 days a week. But when we were talking earlier, you said that you haven't exercised with any regularity for 3 years. Did I understand you correctly? Yes. Okay. And we're also coming to a period where you're going to be snowbound for the next 6 months because we live in, Northern Ontario. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Okay, cool. So how realistic is it, do you think, for you to expect that you can get to the gym consistently 5 days a week? And don't hear me wrong that these are easy things to ask these either current clients or potential clients, but these are the difficult questions that separate really, really good coaches from the world-class ones. So you want to make sure that you identify potential obstacles and then be quiet and let them kind of own it and then work through it. And you're still there as, somebody that is supportive, but also challenging. But you've got to make sure that you identify potential obstacles, because every gym owner and coach that I've ever talked to has a story of signing somebody up that was not a good fit from the jump. And I always say, what are the questions that you are asking in that consult or no sweat intro? Because some of those questions, you need to unearth these potential obstacles, because we all want to help everybody improve their health and wellness. The trouble is we can't help everybody. So the more questions that we can ask, the better equipped we're going to be to help the people that are right for our specific service, which can't be to serve everybody. Okay. Any questions with this piece here, kind of the whole meeting them where they are? You guys have any trouble with that? All right, cool.
I guess a quick question on that.
Go for it. Yeah.
Minimum effective dose, like that's going to be different depending on the category, right? Do you have recommendations as far as establishing minimum effective doses?
Yes, absolutely. So for instance, to Brain Coaching, we teach the SEM model: sleep, eat, move, and manage, right? Mm-hmm. So there's 4 different pillars that we work with clients on. And the only way to effectively figure out what is the minimum effective dose is you need to understand where they are today. And how you get to that is assessing them, right? So how are they sleeping? You can have them log their sleep. You can have them, it's going to be very subjective, obviously, but on a scale of 1 to 10, when you woke up this morning, how much energy did you have? 10 being, I could run through brick walls for the next 24 hours. A 0 being, I didn't want to get out of bed at all. Right.
Okay.
So just making sure that you assess them. Now, what's the right assessment? Whatever you are going to be consistent with at your gym. The wrong assessment is no assessment at all, or an assessment that doesn't inform what the program design is going to be for every client that walks through the door. So you do the same with nutrition, you do the same with daily movement. Now, as health and fitness professionals, we all have, or we should have, beacons of like a 10 out of 10 for sleep, a 10 out of 10 for nutrition, for movement, for stress management, what that looks like. And that's super, super important, because that goes back to what I said here is that's part of your insight and experience, right? Like, what you're talking about. That's what you've dedicated your life to thus far. So it's important for you to have your beacon so that you can guide clients in the right direction. But really, it's important for your client to define for themselves what success looks like today. Meaning, when I see you today, in 3 months from now, what is it going to look like for you to have said, or to say to yourself, you know what? All this work that I've been putting in with Brian or with Taylor at their gym has been successful. Now, their version of success and your beacon might not line up, right? They might not be the exact same, but you have to remember how much further down the road of health and fitness you are than most 99% of your clients. And so the insight and experience that you guys have as coaches, that's where you get the beacon, and that's how you can ask these questions to guide them, so that if they come in and say, yeah, you know what, I would actually like to sleep worse and eat worse and not move at all. And it's like, well, what about this, right? Now, you're not trying to get them to do 60 minutes of exercise a day, but you're asking questions, again, kind of that idea of inception, so that they figure out like, oh, yeah, that actually makes sense. This is what I want to be doing. I know that was a long way around to just simply say, Brian, assessment. Start there.
No, that was a great answer. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Taylor, anything?
No, I'm okay so far.
Okay, cool. I realized that I cut off half of my question to clear my throat, and then you still got the question. So that's good. Awesome. All right. So the last piece of the puzzle, so if we go back up here to just the Cliff's Notes, is, provide education to empower. All right. And so education is obviously important to everybody on this call, or we wouldn't be here, right? We recognize that it makes us better at our craft. We probably just like knowing more and just getting education ourselves. That is great. Otherwise, you guys wouldn't be here. But from a client-facing perspective, when we say educate in order to empower our clients, the first thing that does is it helps reinforce good habits. So it's one thing to spend several months with the client and getting them to adopt better nutritional habits, things like that. But if they're always dependent upon you to say, eat this, not that, and instead they don't understand why they should be eating whole food and why it's better than processed food, then every time after that they are not with you, they're going to have that same challenge. Versus if we can simply provide education to explain why whole food is better than processed food, then when they're presented with something on social media, on the news, or the latest argument, saying that eating this way is actually bad for you, they can dismiss it. It's no longer a concern of theirs. It has become so habitual that that's not a decision they ever need to figure out again. Are either of you guys familiar with the author Seth Godin? He's like really big in the marketing world.
Did he do a presentation at the last summit?
Yes, he did. So
Yeah.
if you saw a picture of him, you'd recognize him. He's way more bald than I am. His head's much shinier, and he always wears like these orange colored glasses, right? Super sharp guy, but he spoke very clearly to this piece here. He said, one of the decisions I made back in the mid 80s is that I'm not going to eat meat anymore. And he's got his own personal reasons for saying that, but he's like, that is now a decision I never have to make again. So no matter what research or anything that comes his way to say, it would actually be great if you would just adopt an all meat diet. He doesn't even, worry himself with that. Now, regardless of your biases or perspectives on that, for him, that decision is just reinforcing his good habit. He educated himself enough to that point so that he no longer has to make that decision. That's just part of who he is. All right. So other things that could be from a sleep standpoint, educate your clients on why sleeping in a cool room is better than a warm room, right? Why drinking half of your body weight in ounces in water is better than just drinking soda all day long. So the education is meant, number one, to reinforce the good habits that they have been practicing so that over time, it just becomes their natural behavior. The second piece, and this ties back into that first one, is when we empower our clients by providing education, it paves a pathway to autonomy, right? And the way that it does it is it affords them the ability to think critically. And yes, I'm going to say what we're all thinking. This would be great for a lot of people in the world today to adopt, is the ability to think critically. But that's all I'm going to say about that right now. But when we empower our clients through education, all right, it gives them the ability to make their own decisions, take ownership of them in an intelligent way, not simply by the whims of whatever the media says or what influencers on social media say. And it does this because it increases engagement, meaning instead of just Taylor told me that I should do this and I'm just going to do it and I'm not going to understand why. Now I know that I remember Taylor said to do this. Here's why. And if I have any questions, I know that I can either A, ask Taylor what she thinks about this, or B, I can go and figure these things out on my own and make the decision that is best for me. Okay. Brian, thank you for the comment. Put another way is when somebody has autonomy over what they are doing, they're independent. It's the old teach a man to fish and he'll feed himself forever versus hand a man a fish and they're always going to be dependent upon you, right? So the way that I always think of autonomy, because it's kind of like a real George Orwell sounding word, is independence over dependence. And me, because I'm so pro coach in creating careers for coaches, I believe that this is the absolute highest value that a coach can provide. Deliver the result that the client wants and set them up for long-term success without needing you. And I know that's very scary whenever I share that with coaches or when they hear it for the first time, because it can sound like I'm trying to take money out of a coach's pocket, or I'm trying to encourage members to leave a gym. And that is not the case at all. What I am very aware of is that there are 7 billion people on the face of this planet. And if we're serious about wanting to make an impactful change, we can't do that with our clients continually relying on us forever. We've got to help them get the result that they want, show them how that was done and how they can continue to make progress, but not need us to be the ones that are holding their hand and pulling them forward. And so how do you do that? You do it through education. So if we're to reverse engineer this whole thing today, when I educate my clients, all right, then they can become the ones to meet themselves where they are. They understand, I'd really love to run this marathon, but I've never actually ran more than a mile and the marathon is in 3 months, it's probably not a great idea to sign up for this thing, because I'm not actually going to run the marathon. I might just do a little walk run, which is not the same thing, no judgment, but it's not the same. I'm probably going to suffer some overuse injury, and it's going to be a miserable way to spend like 5 or 6 hours just kind of walking this whole thing. So they become aware of how to meet themselves where they are and progress from there. And then they can be the ones to identify in their own lives new rhythms of their life that pop up unbeknownst to us as coaches 3 months prior, 6 months prior, 12 months prior. And then again, they can go back down the chain. They identify a new seasonal rhythm. They meet themselves where they are. They establish new habits and behaviors. And then it just kind of repeats over and over and over. And so while they are now taking care of themselves, somebody new has entered your gym, and you can start at the very beginning with each of those new clients that walks through the door. So recap, Cliff's Notes version again: identify seasonal rhythms. Within that member is kind of your role as a staff person at the gym, is putting that into the annual plan that your owner is getting ready to finalize before the end of the year. Number two, figuring out what are the most effective ways that I can meet my clients where they're at today. And then finally, what are the ways that I can empower them? What sorts of education is going to reinforce their good habits, teach them how to think critically, and then get them to be independent on their own? Because like we said at the very, very beginning, when I get into a good routine, it ultimately helps to lower my stress, and I'm provided with a little more comfort in my life. So that's everything that I had today. Brian, I think we had what, 6 pictures, 5 pictures, something like that. Not quite the 8 we had last week, but still more than we used to have, which was 0.
It's okay. I forgot to count, but I think you did great.
Awesome. All right, let me stop the share of my screen. I want to check Facebook to make sure nobody had a question besides Eden, who is about to be snowbound for 6 months. It looks like that's it. Taylor, what questions or comments do you have?
I don't think I have any at this time.
Was this helpful for you? Was it beneficial?
It was actually extremely helpful, especially about the part of like having kids, school schedules, busy work schedules, things like that.
Yeah.
Because I've thought about like seasonal changes and things like that, but never like more personal to them of like, maybe they're more tired lately because their kids are all in school right now, all playing sports. And so they're running around with their head cut off, things like that.
Yeah. And so we've seen not only at my gym, but also just, a ton of gyms across the world that Two Brain works with, that they will actually use that school calendar to influence like their group fitness calendar. So like as school comes back into session and parents, the drop off times, are X. And so they know they need about 30 minutes to drop the kids off and get to class. Maybe the class schedule shifts a little bit. And then whenever it's summertime and people are either A, traveling, or B, nobody wants to be at the gym at 7 o'clock on Friday night. Okay, then we're going to have the summer schedule, and we're going to take out some of those evening classes, or fill it with one-on-one personal training or coach development or something like that. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's really good to hear that was helpful for you. Brian, what about you, man? What was kind of a big takeaway for you, like maybe an aha moment?
Relying back on the SEM model regarding like seasonal stuff. Mm-hmm. I hadn't really considered that. I mean, we always think about how we're going to change programming for the season, but like with my one-on-one clients or even the messaging that I'm giving to our classes, I don't really use that like seasonal stuff. So that'll be a good tool as we start to get a little more gray up here in Seattle.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, that's good to hear, guys. if there's anything else that you wanted me to expand on, or maybe you have questions later on, like I know Brian, you had one about like, how do we know what the minimum effective dose is? If there's any more of those that I can provide more context to, certainly let me know. Whenever this thing is done and uploads to Facebook, you can always just drop a comment into it and tag me, and I'll see it, and I'll be sure to get right back to you.
Cool. And I've got an email
Awesome.
coming your way.
Good deal, man. I look forward to it.
Cool.
All right, guys. Well, I don't want to keep you any longer than we have to today. So if there's nothing else, I will sign off, and I'll see you back here next Tuesday.
Cool. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for your time, guys.
See you.
Bye.